the girls with their nails done now.
Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, please subscribe. I'd really love that. If you're returning, how you doing? Um, what we're going to be talking about right now is something that I saw and I said, ooh, okay, let me dig into this. So, do you see this right here? Okay. This is a post from Alex Jones, and everything that he puts up, I kind of take with like a grain of salt. And I'm like, all right, let me look into it. So it says, alert, top Iranian Mullah. And Mullah, I think, money. Sorry. Yeah, that's the Italian in me. Issues of Fatwa, Fatwa, against Trump and America. This is a religious call to action for Muslims to attack and a declaration of war. And I'm like, oh, no. So I'm like, all right, so let me first look up what a fatwa is. Okay. So this is a verification of a fatwa. A fatwa was issued on June 29th, 2025 by the Grand Ayatollah Nasser Makarim Shirazi, yeah, a prominent Iranian Shiite cleric, issued a fatwa condemning our president and the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu as enemies of God. Okay, so the fatwa was reported by multiple outlets like Fox News, NDTV, News 18, India Today, and Republic World. It labeled anyone threatening Iran's supreme leader or Shia religious authorities as a Mohareb, and that is one who wages war against God. Okay, they didn't do that, but anyway, I was like, okay. So a term that under Iranian Islamic law can carry severe punishments like execution, crucifixion, amputation, or exile. So the fatwa called on Muslims worldwide to oppose Trump and Netanyahu for actions perceived as threats to the Islamic Republic's leadership, particularly following a 12-day conflict involving the Israeli and U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear and military facilities. Okay, well, what did you expect us to do? Just sit back and just say, do whatever you want? No. All right, so what is the context of the fatwa? Well, the fatwa was issued in response to the heightened tensions after Israeli airstrikes on June 13th that targeted the Iran nuclear and military sites, followed by the Iranian missile retaliations and the U.S. strikes on 3 Iranian nuclear facilities. So then our president had warned of further action if Iran continued uranium enrichment. And then he claimed to have spared Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, from attack. Okay, so I can't pronounce the last name. So the fatwa frames opposition to Trump and Netanyahu as religious duty, citing their actions as threats to the Islamic Ummah or community. And Ummah is UMMAH. So what is the scope and what is the language here? So the fatwa, as reported by the Mehr, and that's MEHR, news agency, urges Muslims to unite and bring down the American and Israeli leaders and declares support for them as the haram, or forbidden. And it does not explicitly call for assassination, but uses strong language stating that Muslims who act against these enemies and suffer losses will be rewarded as fighting in the path of God. Right, just like your 40 virgins in paradise. So this could be interpreted as incitement to violence, though the exact interpretation depends on the context and the audience. So what is the analysis of this claim? Well, the death of fatwa against Trump in America. The fatwa specifically claims that Trump and Netanyahu, not America as a whole. So like, not us, but just them, the leaders, right? So the framing of this fatwa is sensationalized in some reports, like with Alex Jones, because he's out there. So anyway, and they describe it as a religious call to action for Muslims to attack in a declaration of war. While the fatwa's language is inflammatory and could inspire violence by labeling Trump as a Mohareb, it does not explicitly declare war or mandate assassination. So instead, it calls for opposition or resistance, which could range from political action to, like, in extreme interpretations, violent acts. The historical precedent of the 1989 fatwa against Salman Rushdie, which led to attacks, suggests that such decrees could incite violence, but the current fatwa scope is less explicit. So what is the religious call to action for Muslims to attack? The fatwa urges Muslims globally to resist Trump and Netanyahu, which could be interpreted by some as a call to action. However, it is primarily directed at defending Iran's leadership and does not explicitly instruct Muslims to carry out attacks. They're just saying resist them. Okay, well, they can resist them all they want, but if you live in their countries, you have to abide by what, you know. So the sensationalisms that are claimed by, like, Alex Jones and whatnot, it exaggerates this into a broad call for violence, which is not fully supported by the fatwa's text as being reported. I'm not, just hang on, I'm not, you know, like, on their side or anything like that. I'm just saying, you know, this is what you know, he's saying to resist. So resist all you want, but if you live in our country or in Israel, you know, you have to still abide by the law. But anyway, so what is the declaration of war? So the fatwa does not constitute a formal declaration of war, which would typically come from Iranian's government or supreme leader, not a cleric issuing a religious decree. War declarations involve state actions, not individual fatwas. What came out of Alex Jones's mouth framing appears to inflate the fatwa's implications, to suggest a broader conflict, possibly linking it to prior Iranian threats or or what they have said or done, you know, recently. But the claim of this fatwa is partially true, but it's heavily exaggerated, like he exaggerates everything else. So a fatwa was issued by the Grand Ayatollah on the 29th, targeting Trump and Netanyahu as enemies of God in their eyes. In our eyes, you know, we see it differently, but then again, the Muslims take everything else to an extreme, because they see everybody and everything as, if you don't bow down to Allah, you know what I mean, you are an enemy, but whatever. So, and he's urging Muslim resistance. So, like I said, you can resist all you want, but whatever, you know what I mean, just as long as you're not violent, but you know what I mean, they're violent anyways. But anyway, so this could be interpreted as incitement to violence, or in extreme cases, or, like I said, resisting. Resist all you want. Who cares? You know what I mean? Just don't become violent, you jackass. So anyway, however, it does not explicitly call for an assassination, target America broadly, or constitute a declaration of war. He's saying resist. Like I said, resist all you want. I don't care. You know what I mean? Say, I'm not going to follow your laws. Yeah, well then, this is America, pal. If you live here, you got to go by our rules. Same as if an American lived over in your country, which we never would, we would have to go by your rules. You know what I mean? Just like you're trying to implement Sharia over here, which will never happen. It'll never happen. Yeah. So stop pushing that shit over here. Okay. Anyway, I am out of here. I will see you in the next one. Okay. You stay safe. You stay positive. You keep prepping. And as always, fear less and God bless. Yeah.